Hello and welcome to the first Substance on Substance from Harneys. My name is Phil Graham, a partner at the head of the economic substance analysis that is going on in the British Virgin Islands at the moment. With me today is Josh Mangeot, one of our key experts who's been a fundamental part behind the Harneys push on making sure that all of our clients and the jurisdiction at large has a full understanding of the changes that are going on at the moment. We thought it was critical to give you an update at this point, given there was a very important meeting in the BVI early this week on Wednesday, the 10th of July. The aspects we'd like to touch on today were key announcements made by Neil Smith as part of the ITA, which were in and around an update on the timing of the release of the code and the guidance notes, a steer from the ITA on what they will be expecting BVI entities to do, a clarification around the tax residence point, and the ITA's view on the Harneys economic substance classification solution. So, Josh, thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks.
It was great to see. Obviously, you were present at that key meeting. The number one question our clients seem to be asking at the moment, frankly, is when are we going to see the code? And we certainly understand our clients' pressing need to understand that. I understand there was some clarification on that point.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's important for clients to appreciate that the government understands the difficulties around timing that clients are facing, and is going to take a sensible approach in the first compliance period. They understand that companies need to structure their affairs based on formal guidance rather than a draft, and are doing their best to get this out as soon as possible. The timing update that we heard is that the enabling legislation required for the code to come into force will be read in the House of Assembly on the 16th of July, and then should be finalised thereafter. So it should be with us later this month.
We can certainly understand our clients' pressing need. I mean, obviously the analysis is that all BVI entities have now started their first financial reporting period. That started on the 30th of June, and I think it's worth giving some clarification around the slight update that came from BVI Finance actually, which moved a certain date to the 1st of October. And Josh, I don't know if you want to touch on that.
That's right. So there's a fair bit of confusion, I think, in the market around timing generally. So just to recap, if you had a BVI company or a BVI limited partnership with legal personality that was incorporated or formed this year, then the first compliance period started from the date of incorporation or formation in the BVI, and that could have been from the 1st of January 2019 onwards. For pre-existing entities that were formed or incorporated before 2019, the 30th of June 2019 commencement date of the first financial period remains in effect. That has not changed. So all entities in the BVI now in their first compliance period. The changes that were made pushing back some aspects of the amendments to our beneficial ownership secure search BOS system to the 1st of October. It's a much narrower category to do with certain persons that previously were exempt from BOS reporting that now are going to have to report some information if they have a economic substance relevant activity as that's defined. So the important takeaway is the first compliance period has started. All entities should be already classifying themselves if they haven't already.
Absolutely, and that has to be the key takeaway of this bulletin, full stop, frankly, that all entities need to be classifying at this point in time. And as Josh has given us the guidance on that, clearly the code will be available in relatively short order so that all of our clients can do that. Now, I think what was interesting as well from the ITA is that they also made it clear that whilst this is a self-certification process that all companies need to go to, they did give some form of implication that companies are going to need to demonstrate the actual classification process that they've gone through. Did you get any more sort of clarity around that, Josh?
Yeah, that's right. That was actually probably the most interesting part of the conversation. The ITA clearly has indicated that as a jurisdiction, we will need to be able to demonstrate that clients have come to a robust classification of their entities' activities for economic substance purposes, and that does, in many cases, where the analysis is more complicated, involve sitting down with your BVI lawyer or a professional to discuss the classification, and they will put evidentiary weight on a legal opinion, a fulsome set of resolutions or record of the general partner in the case of a partnership, showing how the entity came to its determination. Some entities will not have relevant activities and will not be affected. There are a good number of those. A lot of entities will be pure equity holding entities, which is a very narrow definition. The ITA has made that clear. For whom the impact will be relatively light. Some will be more difficult and will be affected and need to be thinking about that and speaking to their advisors. But the interesting takeaway for us as BVI lawyers was that the ITA is going to put a great deal of weight, I think, in the first period from an investigation and enforcement perspective on seeing a robust basis for that classification.
Absolutely, and I think that was very interesting, and that goes to the heart of what everyone should be doing right now. Frankly, even if you believe you're out of scope, you will need to actively demonstrate that you've given it proper consideration, and that is the determination you've made. So that was a really interesting update. The small point, just some clarification around tax residence, Josh, which I don't necessarily want to get into the weeds of on this bulletin, but there seemed to be a bit of confusion around tax residency in the room, and I think that was clarified.
Yeah, much as I would like to talk a lot about tax, I won't. That's right. We think the first question is, do you have a relevant activity for your entity? If the answer to that is no, then you shouldn't need to consider your tax residence because you are not within the ambit of the legislation. If the answer to that is yes, and you want to claim that you are tax resident somewhere else and can provide evidence of that for the financial period, then you need to think about the tax status of your entity, remembering that this is a broader concept than classic residence. It does pick up transparent disregarded entities and entities whose income is subject to tax somewhere else in the world.
Absolutely, and we'll obviously on a later bulletin really get into the tax residence point because I think it's a fascinating topic. The final point was obviously to talk in and around our classification solution. It's currently live. We have a number of clients that are going through and using it and finding it as a really cost-effective, efficient process to get them over the line in terms of all of the classification details that we've just been discussing. What was interesting from our perspective and slightly self-serving, we appreciate, but actually it was part of the presentation that the ITA gave. The ITA did give a view on sort of automated systems such as ours that is available in the market. Josh, I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it was quite gratifying that the ITA, is obviously aware of the efforts that industry is making in the BVI to help clients with this process and to make it as efficient in terms of time and cost as possible. They specifically alluded to our online classification solution, which Phil has mentioned, which, as far as we're aware, is the most cost effective in the market currently. And I think everybody's cognizant of the difficulties faced where you have a very large number of clients facing legal uncertainty and needing to move to classify in what has been realistically a very short period of time, and that's exactly what that solution is designed to do. We're obviously delighted to field queries and feedback on it. It's an evolving piece of technology. If people listening do want to kind of find out more about it, then they should go to www.economicsubstance.vg.
Absolutely,
there's a lot more information there.
No, and fully agree. Please do also feel free to contact Josh or I, and we're more than happy to talk about it. And that concludes the end of our first Substance on Substance. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.